Toronto police officer, 9 others charged in underage human trafficking probe. An investigation into the sexual exploitation of a 16-year-old girl started in November. The officer involved had 11 years of experience with the police service in 51 Division and has been suspended with pay.
Here's a summary of the article.
Toronto police say they've charged an officer and 9 other men in an underage human trafficking investigation. The 49-year-old constable and the others are facing a charge of obtaining sexual services for consideration from a person under 18. They say an investigation into the sexual exploitation of a 16-year-old girl started in November. Investigators say they set out to find people who had paid for sexual services from the girl earlier this year. The officer involved had 11 years of experience with the police service and worked in 51 Division. The officer has been suspended with pay and will appear in court this month. This report by the Canadian Press was first published June 12, 2020.
This post received a score of 74,000, with an upvote ratio of 93%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Sex trafficking is actually a problem in Toronto that often gets swept under the rug. I'm glad to see that's changing.
My daughter in high school just did an essay about that specifically, how Toronto, Mississauga and Brampton are hotspots due to location 401 etc. YYZ Airport and loose laws etc. Got a commendation from her law teacher smiley face.
I remember reading about this 15-year-old girl who was trafficked, abused and assaulted and then her parents were extorted for money. The cops didn't do shit. It was in the Star a couple of years ago and it made me so mad that this was happening and the people who are supposed to stop it just didn't give a shit. The city and the province needs to wake up and do more to help these girls, and training the police to take these cases seriously is a good start.
They didn't give a shit because they were probably involved or knew who was and weren't gonna risk their job going after the real bad cops.
Greater than and weren't gonna risk their job going after the real bad cops. Maybe they were the bad cops.
That's why said involve possibly. Which makes them bad cops. Regardless, they are bad cops if they knew about it and didn't do anything, that's only if they did know.
As per most CBAs with police unions, he is suspended with pay while they investigate. If he weren't, they would file a grievance on his behalf. Once found to be guilty, he would be reprimanded accordingly within the bounds of their CBA.
That's not a police union thing. It's illegal to suspend someone without pay for simple charges in Canada unless they are related to the employment or are very morbid. In this case, it's up to the judge to decide.
How is this not very morbid?
Man, I was just thinking that.
16 is age of consent in Canada. The officers might try to spin it as a prostitution thing, which on the surface isn't as morbid as, for example, cases where toddlers are sexually abused and murdered.
16 is the age of consent to someone not in a position of power. Examples of that would be a teacher, counselor or even a manager at work. I have a feeling a police officer would be considered to be in a position of power to a 16-year-old girl by default. If that's not the case either way, this is being looked at as sexual exploitation and should be considered morbid enough to suspend without pay. In my opinion, it's a big failure. The officer is suspended with pay right now and whoever made that decision is fucked.
Police officers hold positions of power over anyone they put in handcuffs.
I bet ex-cop child abusers are really popular in prison.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.